me extend that point here. Pankaj, let me come to you. I mean, you advised a lot of companies. So, and touching upon the point of corporate governance. So, in your experience, I mean, how have you seen promoters typically react to things like what is there on the balance sheet and what is not? And typically, because see, these investors have, I mean, these promoters have lived with banks for so many multitude of years, right? But it's a very different ballgame when you go and raise institutional money from an equity investor. So, in your experience, I mean, how these issues are, I mean, how do you typically resolve such issues, and what have you seen?
From an investor standpoint, if you pay a very high valuation for a round, the first round, which is whether it's a seed round or it's an angel round or it's a Series A, whenever you're raising the first institutional capital, if you get a very high valuation, it is actually a deterrent to future investors coming into the business. If you've overpaid in terms of the market opportunity. So it actually makes the investor's life as well as the investee company's life very difficult. So rather than trying to get the best valuation for your first round, the idea is to get the best investor and figure out who is the right match, what is it that they bring to the table, and what exactly do you need. I understand everybody needs money to scale up, but to get to that next inflection point in your business, how much money do you really need, and what is it that you're willing to dilute? So now moving to the corporate governance part of the question, I started investing capital in India for Goldman Sachs in 2007. And one very valuable piece of advice that I got when I first started looking at the Indian market was that corporate governance issues in India are a big challenge. There is a lot of cash leakage in the market and whatnot. So unlike in the US where I had initially worked, people told me that rather than spending 90% of your time doing due diligence on the company, spend that time getting to know who the entrepreneur is. Who are you actually giving the money to? And then what kind of corporate governance structure and information structure does that promoter actually have? Very often, early stage companies don't maintain proper records. They don't have the money to maintain ERP and systems to account for things, and there is a lot of cash leakage, related party transactions, and so on and so forth, which become very awkward points of conversation once an investor starts to do due diligence. So to the extent that entrepreneurs understand these and can start taking care of these and putting some systems and processes in place early on, it just makes the investor's life and their own life in terms of raising capital very easy. And one way of doing that is having a good set of board of directors. I understand it is difficult to put a 3 crore kind of ERP, SAS, SaaS-based ERP system in your company. But to the extent that you can have some board of advisors, board of directors who bring some credibility and gravitas to the company and signal to the investors that you are a good company and a clean company, I think that is one, I won't call it a cheap way, but a reasonably affordable way, as long as the directors are, believe in you and are willing to bring that credibility. From an investor standpoint, I think there is no short answer to it. This corporate governance issue still continues to hound a lot of companies. We've seen enough, without taking any names, we've seen enough investments go south and promoters being dragged to court and investors being dragged to court around corporate governance issues. And I think this is the early stages of pain points that the first wave of private equity and venture has seen. I think both the investor community as well as the promoters have now understood the importance of having a good corporate governance structure in place and giving the right kind of information rights, why it's important to put systems to prevent cash leakage and so on and so forth. The standard answer you hear is कि जी मैं किताबों पे तो इतना ही दिखाता हूँ, but actually मेरा turnover इससे बहुत ज़्यादा है, profitability बहुत ज़्यादा है. The investor says जी you show me the last audited financials, here is the multiple that I'm willing to pay of that. So that is a big point of contention, and you need somebody who can help bridge that gap. And that conversation, my sense is will sort of, I hope at least, will phase away over the next few years as people start to account for everything properly on their books, having the right kind of auditors based on affordability. Not everybody needs a big four, but if you can get a right kind of auditor to audit your books and guide you through that process, it just makes the investor's life much easier as well.
Interesting, and that's very good insights, thanks. Now let's assume that our startup has already got funded. We have resolved our corporate governance issues and we have investors on board. Then the question becomes how to maintain and nurture that relationship for the next 5 years, because that's a typical horizon. So in your experience as investors, in your investee companies, I mean, how does the post-investment period really, does really pan out? We can start from you, Akhil.
Good quality entrepreneurs and good quality investors that match each other. So you might have that idea that, hey, I want to get married to Katrina Kaif, but the point is that Katrina Kaif may not necessarily come down and press your mother's feet or, let's say, cook for you at home. So the thing is there somebody, an investor that you can live with in terms of does that investor have, let's say, an understanding of your business, Does the investor also is able to bring resources to you which are relevant for growing your business? Is it more in terms of, do you have an understanding? Are you able to talk to the investor and sort of live with that person in terms of, do you have an understanding of how they work and do they understand you? So the thing is, be very careful. It's not just free money. It's also making sure that you can work together for 5 years to grow a business. And like any good marriage, there has to be a lot of give and take. But the most important thing is find the right person or the right company for your business. Think through this process before you just get money from anywhere.
About that matching of chemistry. It is, we have to spend a lot of time with you as an individual prior to investing. We have to assess that, yes, we will be able to open up to each other, you will be transparent, we will be transparent, we will be able to handhold each other in the tough times or not. That assessment is very important. Are we going to live the same vision as you? That's the critical part for the relationship post-investment. You know, we have given pass to even $1 billion opportunity once we assess this particular entrepreneur is not having the similar chemistry as us. I'm not talking about value system, great value systems, great everything. The only aspect is there was some disconnect. There's some feel-good factor was not coming by. And with that particular stuff, despite three of us as partners saying it is a technological innovation, it is going to lead to abnormal profits, but we are here to back a right entrepreneur, right prodigy. The person who actually has the ability to be flexible, to be able to adapt to the market scenarios, etc. They are normally the entrepreneurs who are already bootstrapped enough. They're broke. They will be living in a 1 or 2 bedroom house with nil or huge amount of gold loans or personal loans because they're pursuing a dream. Now, while they're pursuing such a big dream and we are going to be standing by them, we need to live their life with them. And that exchange of things or that particular personal relationship helps. Otherwise, ideas are there with anybody. It is this particular person who demonstrates the ability to execute in a tough and a different scenario, gives us the confidence to stay with them. Otherwise, we stand by them. Our ability at YourNest is to enable them to build their team. It is always the team A that wins, and hence it is just not the entrepreneur that we bank on post the investment. We allow him to have 5, 6, 7 good world-class people, best-class people who have the same passion as him to join them. Once that happens, we can sleep peacefully.
I think I'll just add to that. There are a few very strong no's, and a lot of these may not be a legal no, it's an ethical no. One is to, when you get an investor in and you get his money in, it's important to stay focused and stay loyal. Now, there is one thing that a lot of foreign investors feel kind of nervous about Indian entrepreneurs is that we always tend to spread ourselves too thin. So we raise money for one project, we try to allocate that money to some other project, and then we do the unethical thing. We do it in a promoter holdco structure where the investor does not get the benefit of an upside. So you take money out from this company through some contracting contracts and you put that money in a company which you are nurturing as a promoter. These, a lot of these things are very vague on the legalities. You may not be legally on the wrong side, but ethically this is a very wrong side which erodes reputation. And the investor community is very closely knit. Even if they compete, they're very closely knit. So if we saw a lot of these things in a lot of construction companies, a lot of infrastructure companies. These are really very bad news. So it's important to stay focused. It is important to use the money for the purpose it was used. It was raised. It's important not to fall in the classic real estate syndrome where you raise money to build up a building and you use that for buying another land. This is something which a lot of Indian entrepreneurs are tempted to do because possibly they feel that the opportunities are too many and it is important to grab whatever comes your way. It does not help because you don't have the financial bandwidth, you don't have the management bandwidth. It just does not help in the long term.